briefly now.
Yeah, anytime.
Well, of course, just when war came along, I'd already sort of signed up. I was a great track star in my youth. Can't run worth a damn now. So I had 5 scholarships for American universities, and all with the idea that when I finished, that I would be a coach and get $10,000 a year. And I thought, wow, like being a millionaire. So that sort of started, and then of course the war came along, and initially I went down to the recruiting, and the chap said, yeah, we look like something we can use. But he said the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan hadn't really, was just in the beginning growing. So he said, we'll call you when there's an opening. So that was fine. But in the meantime, my dad's regiment, which was a militia regiment in Montreal, Hussars, was mobilized. And of course I was still waiting for the Air Force, and my mother kept saying, well, go with your dad. He was in World War I and now in World War II. And he was the regimental quartermaster sergeant, so I said, okay, if the Air Force calls me, I want to be able to go to the Air Force. So they said, yeah, that would happen. And the CO of the regiment, who had known me since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, said, we'll let you go. And so the Air Force did call. And then it became a tussle between the Army not letting me go until the Air Force accepted me, and the Air Force would not accept me until the Army let me go. So that, anyway, finally they did let me go, and later, in many years later, when I was working on my pension, that they said, oh, there was a break in 1940 for 7 days. I said, but I went from one uniform into another uniform. No, it's down here. So I joined the Royal Canadian Air Force the 14th of September 1940 in Montreal, off to Toronto, kitted in all our medicals, injections and all that, and then sent off for guard duty at north on Cape North Island. There, when you get old. And that's when I got my first ride in an airplane. It was a Stranarar and amphibious, so I got my first ride up, and so I then came back, and then from there into IPS at Toronto. That was, you know, the Morse code and marching and all that sort of stuff, King's regulations. And then from there to St. Eugene, to 13 Elementary Flying School, flying finches, and which is the same thing as the tiger moth, except it has a radial engine and rather than inline engine. And then from there down to Summerside, and I guess we're the first or second going. We were just like, it was still mud. The roads had not been quite done yet.
Still not.
It was still building. So, but on Harvard, and then graduate, and there were 23 on our course, and when the postings came out, there were 15 to be instructors in Canada, promoted to pilot officers, and 8 to go overseas as sergeant pilots. So I had not thought of being an instructor. I thought I wanted to be overseas. So during the night, in came another message saying, change that from 15 to 14. And so the next morning, 2 of us were down at our flight commander's office and saying, sir, send me. So a chap called Hume. So Mac Hume said, how old are you, Middlemiss? 20, sir. How old are you, Reed? 28, sir. They want young fighter pilots. You're going Middlemiss. So over I went as a sergeant pilot to England, to 57 OTU on Spitfires. That was up in Harden in Cheshire. And from there to, just a little side, Mac Hume, later when I was the flight commander in 403 Squadron, he was posted over to my flight, still as a flight lieutenant, but a very senior flight. I was only an acting flight lieutenant, but anyway, it just happened, and he didn't stay with us long, really. He'd done an instructor, I think, just too long. Anyway, that was a little aside. And so then from the OTU to 145 Squadron, which was a squadron in the south of England, at the Tangmere Wing. That was the Bodder Wing, and so just before I finished the course, the squadron moved up from Tangmere, or from Merston, where it was stationed, to Catterick for a rest. And so instead of going down south, I went over there. And so I was there for, not too long, but, and then was sent down to 41 Squadron, which was the squadron that had replaced 145, and that was at West Ham, at Merston, which the Tangmere Wing was Tangmere, Merston, and West Hamnet. And, and then during that time, that's when old Buzz Burbank came and joined us, and there's a couple hours of story to tell about him. And then from there out to Malta in 42.
But you're not going to stop without the Malta. You got to run through the sequence of events, because that's a fascinating story too.